Alright, so now we're going to program the turned robot. So this one's designed to be a little rubber band shooter that you can aim. So if you have your finger over like the right sensor, it'll turn to the right, the left sensor, it'll then turn to the left, and you put your finger over the middle, then it'll shoot the rubber band. So we can go ahead and get started. Like always, we need to include the Smart Inventor library, and then since we're going to be using the motors, we're also going to do the DC motor use command. And then, yeah, we can go ahead and get started with the rest of it. So we'll start with the check sensors code. This should be familiar for you guys, but one thing to note, the board is mounted backwards from how it normally is. So the board's left sensor that we've normally been using is actually going to be the right sensor. So if you notice, pin 21 is now going to be a left sensor, and pin 19 is now for the right sensor. So just make sure you get that corrected in your program so that way we don't get too confused. Alright, so now we can work on the if. Now we're going to need to do like what we did for the crab robot and the Viking robot, where we have the base level so that way we can tell if something is getting closer to us than what it was before. So we'll go ahead and we'll create that. So we need to have the 3 base levels created up at the top, and we need to read them and save them in setup. So just like what we've been doing, we do an analog read, then we subtract 50 just to give us a little bit of room for error, and then we save that into our base levels. So we can check to see if our base level is, or if we're lower than our base level, so that way we know that there's something in front of us. So now we can go ahead and do it for the left and the right, or left and the center, so that way we can get this code all set up. Go. There we go. So now we got it all set up, ready to go. So we can start with the simple turn code. So you guys already know how to use the DC motors. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using motor M1. We're going to have it turn clockwise at 100 power for just 6 milliseconds, and then it'll stop, and then wait 2 milliseconds, and then it'll go back through the loop. So this does it so it kind of incrementally moves just a little bit. So that way you can have some pretty good control over the accuracy. So we can go ahead and do the same for move left. But we're also going to have LEDs that will light up to go with this. So we've got the code to have it turn. Now we're going to have LEDs that will tell us which way it's trying to turn. So the first thing we need to do when we use LEDs is up in our setup up here, we need to actually tell the program that we're going to be using the LEDs. And the command for that, if you guys remember, is pin mode, and then the pin number, and we need to tell it that it's going to be an output. So we're going to be using 11 and 12 for the right sensors. Then we're going to be using 14 and 15 for the, actually I apologize, I got that wrong. We're using 11 and 12 for the left, 14 and 15 for the middle, and 17 and 18 for the right. So we can go ahead and add that in. So what we'll do is, for the right one here, we're going to turn on the LEDs, then we're going to have it move, and then when it stops moving, we're going to turn them off. So you guys should remember how to use LEDs. It's digital right, then the pin number, and then we give it high to turn it on and low to turn it off. So this way it'll turn on, it'll move its little increment, and then it'll turn off. And they can just keep going through. And it should, if you hold it over, it might flicker, look like it flickers a little, but for the most part it'll look like it's constantly on if you keep your hand over the one side. So we'll go ahead and we'll do the same for the left side, this time using the other LEDs. So turn those ones on, then we'll turn them off. So we should have our code all set up so that way you can move the turn left and right and have the LEDs light up to go with it. Now let's actually write the code for having it shoot. So for shooting, we have that other motor that's plugged into M2. This one we're going to have it turn clockwise at 100% speed for 0.3 seconds, or 300 milliseconds. Then we'll have it stop for 100 milliseconds. So this way it'll shoot, and then kind of wait a little bit so that way you can do stuff. And also with this one, we're also going to do the LEDs. So we're going to do the same thing, but this time with LEDs 14 and 15. So we're going to turn them on, and at the very end, we shall turn them back off again. The reason why we're making sure to turn them off at the end of each of these is just to make sure that we don't have multiple lights lit up. It just simplifies things by having to do this way. And for the most part, even if you have your hand constantly over it, it won't really look like it's flickering very much. It should look like it's fairly constant. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys learned something.